Welcome back to another episode of Rebel Driver's Garage. I am Scott. I am trying to get my 1965 Impala SS back on the racetrack. We've got a lot to do. I used to race this kind of in bracket races, but that was like 25 years ago. That was 1990s. Yeah. I've owned this car since 1996. I used to bracket race it in Sacramento Raceway in the late 90s before I moved to Los Angeles in 1999. Long time stuff. I kind of got away from drag racing for a long time. It was my street car. It was my only car when I was drag racing it. And I was just doing bracket racing, and it never really went very fast. It was a 14-second car. It used to run really right at 14.0 at 100 miles an hour pretty consistently when it had a 383 and an automatic in it and 336 gears. And that was on street tires. I never put slicks on it or drag radials or anything on it when I raced it. So, but since then, it's been more of a street car. I drive it all over the country. I drove it all over California, up and down every highway you could think of in California when I lived there. But I'm trying to get it ready for Rocky Mountain Race Week. That's right. Now, not only does it have to be legal to go on a racetrack, which means the battery in the trunk needs an external switch, which it doesn't have. It's got a switch that's in the trunk. And that's not legal for racing. So I got to put in another one of those. I got to put one that has a handle on the outside or a switch on something on the outside, which means I got to drill a hole in the back of my car, which I'm not happy about. The other thing I got to do is make sure I got the right type of fuel line in it. I'm not sure. It's a push lock fuel, so I might have to replace that. I'm going to have to do some research. But the other part of it is Rocky Mountain Race Week is a drag and drive event. That means it's got to be legal. I mean, I got to have turn signals that function, headlights, brake lights, the whole shebang. That's got to work. And the horn has to work, which which it does, but I don't like them. They're old and the original ones of the car, and they kind of sound more like a VW horn than anything else. So I'm going to try to solve all those problems. And there's other things that are wrong with the car, like the gas gauge doesn't really function. It's, Rocky Mountain Race Week is the longest of the drive part of the drag and drive events out there. Nobody else has an actual 2 days of actual driving. That's right. They have 2 days of driving. That means that those 2 days going from Pueblo to Great Bend or Great Bend to Pueblo, which direction they're going, and Kearney and Denver, between those two, Kearney to Denver is like a haul. Last year it was 480 miles. That's right, 480 miles between two tracks. So I got to have a functioning gas gauge, otherwise I'm going to run out. Right now it reads like just under half a tank when it's full, and then it goes down from there. And it's, and if you ever driven from Kearney, Nebraska, which is not a very big town, to Denver, well, let me tell you, there ain't anything big between the two. And the way that they put the routes, you're on 2-lane highways in the middle of freaking nowhere. So running out of gas out there ain't going to be cool, and it ain't going to be fun. And it's probably going to be hot, too. So I got to solve all this stuff. And there's a bunch of other little things that I got to fix on it that I've been ignoring for a long, long time. So bear with me here as we get started. I got a lot to do, and we'll get going. I'm probably going to break it up into 2 parts because this is going to be a lot of stuff to cover. And let's get started. Next on the to-do list, fixing my Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator that's leaking everywhere. The engine sat for 4 years, and I'm sure there was gasoline in there for 4 years and probably ate away the rubber seal. It started leaking gas out of the vacuum port here. This is one of those versions that you can change the spring inside for carbureted or fuel injection. I have a spring in the box I'm here. And the kit, which is right here, which doesn't include a lot. A diaphragm and new screws, What's the part number? I don't see a part number on here. Do you see a part number? I don't see a part number. Anyway, that's weird. There's no part number on it. Oh, there it is. Part number 13009. Repair kits for 2 different versions. Here's the old diaphragm. And you can see it's got some cracking in the edge here inside. I don't see any pinholes or anything like that, and the diaphragm's still soft and pliable. But as you can see, the new diaphragm is a different material. So the new diaphragm will probably work a lot better against today's fuels. Right, the fuel pressure regulator's back on. Cleaned up a little bit. I need to see if it's out of adjustment. I got to start the car up for that. Here, the fuel pressure regulator is reading a little high. It says like 7 or 8. It's not crazy high for a Holly. Typically around 6 is best for a Holly. That's not leaking. Fan switch is on in the dash, but the fans aren't running yet because the car's not up to temp. We'll leave it running for a while, get it up to temp, see what happens. One of the other things I did is I have a line lock in this car. And it used to have the typical momentary button that you like zip tie to your shifter. I didn't like having that because I didn't want it to be touched, so I added this switch here. So what the switch did is that you powered it up, and the momentary switch would turn on. When you hit the momentary switch, this would light up and tell you that the line lock is actually engaged. But the momentary switch is dead. It's like stuck in the on position, so I just rewired it to this. It's like literally right in front of the shifter. So, and I'm second gear. This is second gear, so I can just reach forward when I'm in the dirt of burnout and just flip it off when I want to turn it off for a burnout and at the drag strip. That way I'm not accidentally turning it on when I'm driving down the street by hitting a button, by hitting a bump or something. I always was worried about that. That's why I had the extra power, arming switch on it. Now that the momentary switch is dead, I just use this. Is put the backup lights back in, because my 6-speed actually has a backup light switch in it. Years ago, the car actually never really had the wiring hooked up for some reason for the backup light switch. Now that I got that going from the fuse box all the way back to the taillight harness back here underneath in the trunk, I was going to put these back in. Now what did I do in the beginning is, since they weren't working, I got another set of taillights out of the salvage yard. These are actually out of a 65 Bel Air. They're different from Impalas in that they still have the chrome trimmer on the edge here, right? But they have a molded plastic, oops, I dropped my camera there. They have a molded plastic button right there in the middle, or a bullet, whereas Impalas have the little chrome bullet. My inners on both sides have the bullet that fell out. And it was random, so I just stuck them both on the inside and on the trunk. So on this side over here, the one that's missing the bullet is there. Here's a 65 Bel Air tail light. See, it's got a plastic bullet. And then the outer still has its chrome bullet in it. Over here on the counter, I've actually kept these all these years. Are the backup lights that were actually original to the car. They got a lot of, typical your cracking up here, or age cracks on the top, but they're still red. I've actually bought new taillights before, and this part just like turns pink or fades out to clear almost immediately. I do have to glue this white lens back in, and they still have their chrome bullets in it, though. One of them is like gotten really rusty. I think this one is, yeah, the bolt's kind of really rusty. But I'll put those back in, and then I'm going to continue using them until I actually get new taillights altogether. I might end up doing like LED style taillights as long as they look like the originals. The taillights are kind of the taillights on these cars are kind of what it's one of the aspects of the designs of the car I really like. I like how they stick out like this, though on bright sunny days, the sun hitting the top of these taillights makes it kind of difficult to see them. But it's one of the things when people take these off or put like flush mounted ones, and it just ruins the look of the back of the car. So I'll show you what I've been doing here. Hang on one second. Okay, as you can see, I have just the outers on both sides are the taillights. And so what I did with the middles, I used them for brake lights, and I'll show you what happens. Replacing the undercarpet wire harness that goes from the trunk. It plugs in just underneath the behind the seat that goes all the way forward. It's like a tape wire. So I replaced it with the one I found in the salvage yard, a really nice one. Mine never had this like protective sleeve. Mine was just this part here. And I was kind of hoping that was the reason why the trunk wire, the gas gauge wasn't working right, because it was grounding out. And, this wire had wore up through. Now on my original one, let me grab a light here. See, this car didn't have carpet for years and years and years and years. So the tape wire was just like literally just like sitting here under my feet for 20 years. And it was just like it was like under my feet. And it was being rubbed on the floor. Every time I got in and out of the car, I moved my feet around on the floor. And without that protective sleeve on there, it was rubbing. And it was just becoming a problem. So the tape wire goes all the way up to here. Ew, that's really too bright. Let me turn down that light. There we go. So the tape wire goes up to here, and then it connects to the harness. This is your trunk light harness, and this has like your turn signals, your brake lights, your tile lights, and your gas gauge, and your license plate light all in there. And that all runs underneath the carpet to the rear. And I found this super nice one in a 6 Impala at the salvage yard. And look at it, it looks brand new. So amazingly. And so I replaced that in hopes that it would solve my gas gauge issue, which I'm not real sure it did. The gas gauge is here. Turn the lights on so you can actually see it. Ooh, it goes to empty. Let's see what happens. That's weird. See how it just goes up a little bit? It's odd that turning the headlights on, it went down to empty. Weird. So, turn the key on. I was turning the headlights on so you can see it a little better. I actually have no idea how much gas is in this car. I haven't driven it since last spring. So, it's just been kind of sitting here like this. I have to put some gas in to see if the actual gas gauge works still. But there was something that was confirmed that did start working again. And that is the optional trunk light, which this car always had a trunk light in it. And so what I'm going to do to change it back to is I got to take this harness out that goes up in through the trunk and goes across here to the 4 taillights that are in the trunk, and I got to reconnect them to the in here. There's a green and a black wire with a light green stripe. That is your backup lights on this car. How do I know that? Because I have a wiring diagram for this car. And I'm going to take this wire, this plug out and pull it up through here. And then fix the wiring. I've also since replaced my light sockets up here with ones that ground out, because these 65 Impala's light sockets, they suck. They have a tendency to fall out. They don't stay in. And these actually came out of a 70s Monte Carlo that I found at this salvage yard. And they actually have a separate ground wire instead of the socket itself just being the only ground to the actual housing. These actually have separate ground wire, which makes them so much better. And I gotta fix some of my old wiring job. This is what happens when you work on, I own a car for 27 years that's like 50 years old. You go back and you find some of your terrible wiring work that you've done, and you've since learned over the years how to do a better job of it. These are not bad, actually. These connectors right here, these are actually heat shrink connectors. These are butt connectors with a coating that's a heat shrink style. But I do have some that are like, that are still in the car that I have yet to fix. So I'm gonna go through and fix all that and solve this issue. I mean, these actually are kind of ugly when you look at them if you're thinking about it for a show car. But but I'm gonna solve all this, and I'm gonna get this wire. This is the main harness here for the trunk. It's all hanging out. I don't know why it's hanging out. It should be tucked up underneath there. So I'm gonna solve all this today, and hopefully have backup lights that work. You see these, this is the harness that goes up into the trunk lid here. If you have the optional trunk light, you'll have a separate plug and separate wire. So this plug here is the plug for the trunk light. So, and then these are for your tail lights here and your backup lights. So I'm going to disconnect all this so I can pull it out of the trunk lid. The T-56 kit here from American Powertrain comes with a plug for the switch for the backup light switch, and it's basically a plug, a two-prong weather pack style plug. It's GM. So I ran the wires from it up here and under the dash there, and then I gotta clean all that. I gotta tape all this back up because I untaped everything looking for where the wires went, and it went directly. This is the actual original plug right there that for the backup light switch, which is about correct position would be to go to the original car. The car had originally an automatic transmission, and it would go down there like with the harness here for the console. And I was just kind of doing some exploration trying to find it, and I came across that, and it's the right colors because on my wiring diagram it talked about how the wiring for the backup light switch is black with a light green stripe. When you get over to the tape wire, it's the one that's sort of black black with a light green stripe, and that's what runs all the way through the car and into the trunk. And so I was lucky to find it all and not have to reuse the original stuff without having to run separate wires and have more wiring of this dash, because this thing is just I really got to get an aftermarket wiring harness for this car. That's probably going to be one of my next big projects for the car, is to rewire the entire car front to back with an aftermarket, like say like an American Auto Wire kit or something. First time in 20 years the backup lights have been back in the car. And it's the first time since I've owned the car that they've ever actually worked. 57 years old and they still work good. My old shifter boot, it's really showing its age. The vinyl is just literally deteriorating. And this was actually the chrome trim that used to be on a Hurst shifter boot. But I replaced it with a new one. This one is from Mr. Gasket. Ooh, there we go. This one is Mr. Gasket here, which was a little bit cheaper. Basically identical. The only difference is it doesn't say Hurst on the chrome plate up there, which is okay because this is not a Hurst shifter. This shifter is from American Powertrain. It's their White Lightning quick ratio. It's got really short throws on it. Let me see here if I can do this. So the throws are like, that's it. Let me do this. So it's maybe 4 inches total. So nice and short. The boot's going to go in. Now I got to put the console back in and hide some of this ugly carpet that's under here. This carpet came out of another 65 Impala. And I got it and a whole bunch of other parts I took off this car. This other 65 Impala. For like 25 bucks. That included like a grill, another bumpers, door handles, door panels. I'm going to replace these door panels. You see how mine have diamond plate where the carpet should be. That's the way the car came 27 years ago. See? Like that. And then they have like the little bit back there that was the carpet. So that's the way the door panels came when I bought the car. And I got another set of door panels. They're actually a little nicer than these. These, you can tell these were in the California sun its whole life. They got cooked. They're driver quality. They're not brand new. The back ones on my car are still pretty nice. What they call quarter panels. I don't know what the hell. The quarter window panels and armrest, rear armrests. Those are still in decent shape, and those are actually original to the car. Anyhow, moving on. I went to install longer lug nuts on the front. And mainly, well, I need it for racing, obviously, but I also didn't really feel safe with the thread engagement with these aluminum wheels with the thicker flanges over steel wheels. I also did the rotors, returned the rotors. They got kind of glazed after sitting for 5 years. Added new brake pads. I discovered that one of my brake pads on the other side was bent. The little tang that hangs onto that goes over the bolt, the caliper bolt, was bent, and it was. I guess that came when I broke the spindle on the car. I broke a spindle. The spindle shaft just snapped off when I was in a parking lot. I gotta do this. It's gonna look kind of weird until I get the rears done. See how the thread engagement's not really all that hot. I got another differential going in this car, so it's gonna look a little weird until I get the 12 bolt in the car. But for right now, it's gonna do. I gotta get that 12 bolt done and get it in the car. On to the next item. I've owned this car 26 years, and for 26 years, I never owned a glove box liner. What I used to have in here is my old JVC stereo. Used to be control a 12-disc CD changer. I am that old. I haven't used it in years. It probably doesn't even work anymore, I bet. And I took it out, and it had like a little box doohickey thing that I was mounted into. I took all that out when I put in the new stereo with a Bluetooth because I finally got up to date. And anyway, I'm going to put in a glove box liner finally. $20, and 15 minutes later, I have a nice glove box. And I can throw some crap in it already. See? Registration, band-aids, paper, pens. Yep. I can even throw my sunglasses in there instead of hanging them on the windshield. One of the things on my list was to install this AFR gauge. I actually have two of these. A friend of mine who worked at an R&D department for an old engine company. They were upgrading their dynos, and he gave me these old AFR gauges. Of course, the new dynos had it all built in to the computer system. So what I did was I had to buy this little bracket here to put it on the steering column with my tack, my really old tack here. And this is like 20 bucks for it. It's just a little tack bracket. Got it from Summit Racing, and I had to buy a wideband O2 sensor, and I had to look it up. This is an old Pro Comp biometer. And so what I did is I found some instructions for odometer, wideband air fuel ratio gauge, which had the same wires that mine does, though I'm not using most of this. It has the two blue and black wires here, or whatever the heck. What is that? Yeah, blue and black, and white. Though mine doesn't have the white, because mine it's like this. It's not like a regular gauge like that with a light bulb in it. Anyway, what I did is I just followed the instructions. I downloaded and printed them, brought them out to the car, and I have a Summit Racing wideband. It uses a very specific one for this. I had to look it up. I forget the number. Shoot. Anyway, I forget the number. Anyway, so what this one does is I'm going to turn it on, start the car, make sure it's in neutral, because the front of the car is on jack stands, and it would not be good to try to start the car. Put the clutch in just in case. Now it's warming up. It's warming it's heating up the O2 sensor, because it's not reading right. It goes through this sweep on this particular brand. All right. Oh, looks like my idle circuit's pretty close. Not crazy. The engine's ice cold still, as you can see. That's pretty cool. I didn't even notice it had this LED deal here, but I'm going to be tuning the carburetor, trying to figure out a dead spot. I'm not sure if it's too much fueling or too little. And these babies are well worth their money, even when you're tuning a carburetor. I'm going to shut this thing off because the garage door is closed, and I don't want to open it. And it's like 20 degrees outside. I don't want to open the garage. I got that heater over there running, so it works, which is a good thing. Under the hood here, I ran the wiring for the O2 sensor right through the firewall through this thing here. This is a vacuum gauge that factory Super Sports has, a vacuum gauge, oil pressure gauge here. And, oops, got my finger in the way. And I'll show you the O2 sensor. Some time ago, I put in a header reducer when I had the exhaust modified. And what I did is you can buy header reducers with an O2 bung in them already, so you don't have to worry about welding them in or doing that crazy clamp-on style. And then I put a clamp up there, hold it, and then I run it up there through the firewall. This is a Summit Racing one. It was about 90 bucks. I don't know how long it'll last. I usually would buy a Bosch or something, because, you know, hey, everybody knows that the Bosches are the best, but I'm on a budget right now, so I'm going to give this one a shot and see what happens. One of the things we got to redo is get this 12 bolt in the car. The car is still running the original 10-point 10 bolt, which is 8.2 inch, and it's been in there for a long, long time. Okay, here is my 10 bolt, which looks like it's now leaking on the floor, and it's not good. Anyways, this one was in the car when I got it. When I bought the car in 1996, it was a 256 one-legger or peg leg or non-posi. It now has a 336 gear with a posi unit. And the reason why it survived all this time is because the tires have never really had good grip and traction. And it's now the weak point. And the weak point is the part that usually breaks first. An 8.2 inch is not as strong as an 8.5 inch. A lot of guys can run 8.5 inches. There's a lot of aftermarket support to make them very, very strong, but there isn't on these 8.2 inches, and they're kind of spindly. And if I dump the clutch on 500 horsepower and tires that actually grip, it's probably going to break that thing in half. So it's got to come out. So we have over here an 12 bolt. This one has 373 gears. It has a factory posi, or actually not. It's got some sort of aftermarket posi, which I have completely forgotten what it is. Richmond gears. It's a street strip kind of alloy. And I've also got Mosier axles going in it. And for right now, it's going to be running drum brakes. So, and I don't think the car is going to be fast enough to require us to have C-clip eliminators. And so we're going to go from there. This one has a Richmond gear, a street strip kind of material, 373 posi. It's got a GM factory center section. It's like an Eaton style clutch posi. I got these axles here. These are from Mosier. And I'm going to do a couple other things. I have this bearing cover from a company called LPW. I've never heard of them. This was in like a friend of mine's shop up in the corner. Kind of ended up with it when he had a garage sale. This is a bearing support cover. You can see the two things there. What that does is helps the bearings not get pushed out. The axle bearings on the inner axle bearings, they don't get pushed away from when the carrier puts a lot of pressure on it. And it's aluminum. It's kind of dirty. It's been sitting around forever. And today we're going to be putting in axle bearings and seals. This is the axle bearing here. This is a National, let's see if it'll focus, 6408 from National, I believe, yeah. Yeah, 6408. And we ended up with a 5707 originally, but that's for a 2 1/4 inch. This is a 2 1/2 inch or 2.53, I think is the exact number. The inside diameter, or the diameter of the machine surface where the bearing goes on, is supposed to be 1.62. And so we had to go back into the store and get them nice, and they were so nice that they exchanged them. Because I've had the other bearings sitting on the shelf and the seals on the shelf for like a 1.5 years now. Here are the seals. These are Nationals as well. And the camera doesn't want to focus on them. Yeah. Well, it's probably easier just if I got the box now. Where's the okay. Ooh, come on. Let's go. There we go. 8835S. 1.6182575 by 0.46. That's kind of nice if it's right on the label. And we test fitted these as well, like so. See? And we rented a bearing and seal driver tool to do it right. Mainly because we got to get the bearing all the way into there, and we want to do it correctly. So if it was just a seal on the outside, I've used a block of wood many times. That works well, as long as it goes all the way across and you're hitting it pretty even. So let me get up a camera, set up the camera, and we'll start installing these. All right, so you can see there's a step in here, right? And so the bearing has got to go up on that step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little easier on myself. I'm going to put a little grease in there, so hold on a moment. Alright. Move the camera a bit. Oh, I guess we did. Alright. So, let's get started. I'm going to try to get it up on the step a little bit. Like that. Put that on there. I'm going to use a dead blow instead of an actual hammer. So we might have to get the BFH out. Oh, look at that. It's going in pretty easily. Alright, put a little bit of grease around here to get the seal in. Thank you, Zero. And then do the same thing with the seal. Try to, oops, that came loose. Try to keep the seal pretty even across the face or the driver, because it wants to do that. If it wants to turn, then give it a little smack on the edge. It sticks out a little bit. And she's in. And we'll see what happens here. I'm going to move the camera a little bit. Make sure everything's copacetic. Yep, see, they're going to slide in. I still got to press the why is that not turning? Oh, so I gotta get in there and see what's going on, because I don't have the C clips or anything in there, so I gotta get that. But the axle's going in, slides in nice and easy, like so. I gotta press the wheel studs in still, and then I gotta do a little work on the interior of the rear end first. Now we're gonna do the other side. So get this thing kind of up on the step a little bit. I still got cobwebs all over this thing from sitting in storage for so long. There we go. Having the proper tools makes it so much easier. This is the rear end that I got set up here. It's a, I believe it's a clutch type. I've had it set up for a couple of years now. The ring gear is a 373 from Richmond. The part number came out to be their straight strip. This is a ring and gear pinion ring that I bought, oh God, probably 12 years ago. When I was living in Los Angeles, I got it like the Pomona swap meet, and I've had it sitting on the shelf forever. I have the 373, the 3 Series Posi unit sitting on the shelf forever. They have no miles on there. You can see there's no miles on the ring and pinion at all. I guess somebody put them in and didn't think it was, you know, put it in and didn't think it was good enough, so they took it back out, or there was the wrong rear gear, or they thought it was way too steep for their application, or not enough gear for their application. When I put it to when I bought it, it still had the setup paint still on it. And I'm not real sure about the center section. It doesn't look like a factory GM. It is a clutch type. I can see the clutches there. So you can see the clutches right in there. Oops, right there. It's a clutch type, so it means it's rebuildable. I don't remember exactly. I thought this was a factory GM one, but it doesn't look like one, but it could be. I don't see any GM part numbers on it. Here is my trunk mounted battery in the car. As you can see, I have a switch back here. Obviously that switch is not legal for racing, and I wanted to do something different, so I got a Summit Racing one, which is going to have a rod going through, just a rod, which is much better than drilling a giant hole for one of these things. And the other problem I would have is the rear panel is pretty thick. I mean, well, it's not back here, but if I ever put the trim back on it, the trim is pretty thick. It's like, oh, it's like that thick with it's almost an inch thick. So that kind of switch is not going to reach all the way through there. With the trim panel back on it. So I'm going to be going to a rod style, and here's a rod for the new one I got. I'll show you that when I install it. And so we're going to be doing that next. I have the new switch in from Summit Racing. You can see the label. The rod goes through, and I did a little bit of my own penmanship there with the paint. And I did add the trim on the back on after, I don't know, 15, 20 years that I haven't been on the car. 2008 is when I took it off. And the first thing that I did is I drilled a giant ass hole in it. Oh, well. At least it's, you know, whatever. Gotta do that race stuff. See, I have turn signals that function in the back, but they don't really function up front. Well, they do. If I hold the stick down, you'll be able to see it against, yeah, you can see it kind of reflecting off the refrigerator there. I have to hold the stick down in order for them to work. And I don't have any indicators in the dashboard. See, there's the other side. No indicator on that side. And those work back here, which is great. But nothing up front. So, and no dash light either, which is fun. See, nothing works. Maybe see if I could hold this one up, if it'll come on. Nope. It'd be reflected in the toolbox drawers there, and it doesn't do anything. So that one doesn't work at all on the front. And the cam is busted. It's floppy. So what I've done is I found in the salvage yard the other day a new, this is a column harness. This came out of a 66 Impala. For some reason the wires are different color than the original 65 Impala and 66 Impala, because if you go down here to the original plugs that somebody cut before I got there, the wires change color from the plug and the column harness down here. Now this column harness could have been replaced at one time over the years, who knows what you're going to find in a 60-year-old car that's in a salvage yard. So, but the wires are super soft and pliable. See that? They're nice and soft and pliable. They're not cracked. The coating is, you know, what happens with the coating gets brittle, and then it starts cracking on you, and then it starts having exposed wires, and then you have, like, you know, mystery shorts in your steering column that you can't figure out why nothing works. I had already replaced the turn signal cam, as you can see here. Right? Turn signal cam. That's new. You can still get these. They're cheap. But the rest of it is in good shape. It has all the little tabs that you need. See, there's tabs in there for the turn. That's the actual wires that go into that. See, the wires come up to here, and then there's all these little tabs underneath the turn signal cam. And what happens is when you turn the cam, it causes these little tabs to hit each other, and to complete a circuit for the signal. When it's in the middle, you have brake lights on both sides. And when you turn it one way or another, it turns the brake lights off and interrupts the brake light wiring flow of electricity and gives you turn signals. So we're going to be putting this in pretty soon as well, which means I got to take the steering wheel off. And it's really not that hard to do. It's really kind of simple. Okay, I have the steering wheel column on. I'm filming it just with the light with the garage right now, the garage door light, so I can show you what's going on. A little easier. Got the key on, the turn signals, okay, and they work out there. If you look in the mirror, oops, where's the mirror? Well, the mirror, if I wasn't in the way of the mirror, there you go. See, that's the left one. Left one's working. Right one's working. And you can see up there the reflection in the toolbox. And the reflection back there. So the tool is, okay. Now I have functioning turn signals, which is what I need for race week. One step down, many more to go. Just in case this thing runs 16s. Just in case it runs 13s, I got to put a drive shaft loop in it. This is one that was in my GMC before I restored it. It's free, and it'll work for this car. And I have two of them. There's another one I have in storage. I grabbed this one, though I might grab the other one because this one looks like it's kind of bent a little bit, but not that it really matters. And hopefully the car will run 13s. We'll see. So what it means to install that, I got to take the interior out and drill holes in my floor. Oh yay, but my floor is kind of messed up anyways. I'm going to be replacing it when I restore the car. So let me grab the key. I got the keys. So what's 8 more holes? I appreciate you all watching to this point. I'm going to end the video here. I still got a lot to do to get this car ready for race week. So first thing up is I got to get the 12 volt inside in the car and get the 10 volt out of the car. I also have to do a parking brake, which is easier with when I get the differential back in the car, and then a drive shaft loop because I'm hoping to go faster than 14.0. It would be nice to go faster at 14.0 and actually need a drive shaft loop. Yep. And then one other thing is I gotta fix the window regulator. It's a mess. I'm gonna be driving a car in the heat. It's black. I want to roll down that window. The passenger front door window does not want to roll down. It's the regulator screwed up. It had a lot of the teeth got knocked off. Still got to do that. And you can watch me swear and curse and a lot of other things when I'm trying to do that and cut out my arms sticking them through the doors. And then the other thing I got to do is fix my gas gauge. I got to have a gas gauge that functions correctly. I'm going to be driving 450 miles on 2 days at least from Great Bend to Pueblo, and Pueblo, Denver to Kearney. So a gas gauge, those are 500 miles, sometimes 450, 500 miles. I got to have a gas gauge that functions. That way I don't run out the gas in the middle of nowhere, because there is a lot of nowhere between those cities. Okay, so thanks for watching, and we'll be back next time. Thanks you.